Listen to what's about to happen on April 8th of 2024. First of all, CERN is going to be starting up their Hadron Collider to collide two atoms to produce what they're looking for called the God particle. Not only that, NASA is launching rockets into the eclipse, and they call the mission after an Egyptian serpent deity. The cicadas are coming by the billions, first time since we've seen them since 1803, covering a large swath of the United States of America. Red heifers are about to be sacrificed in Israel for the first time in thousands of years. There's a massive solar eclipse coming across the United States, forming an X marks the spot in southern Illinois. Not only that, we've got wars and rumors of wars and more. There are so many things that are happening on April 8th. Some of them might be coincidence, some of them are just downright strange, and some of them are no question potentially life-altering in the spiritual realm as the pages of prophecy begin to unfold right before our eyes. Let's start off with CERN. CERN is an international body of scientists that have developed the largest Hadron Collider in history. It is a 17-mile 300 feet underground tube that's designed to put particles in opposite directions going at 7 miles an hour under the speed of light and then collide them, which is extraordinarily difficult. It's like shooting a bow and arrow at 100 yards away from your opponent and hitting the tips just perfectly where they explode. That's what they're trying to do. And why are they trying to do this? Because they believe if they can get these particles to go at the speed of light and eventually come and collide with one another, then they will discover what's called the antimatter or the dark matter of what is holding together matter to begin with. They know it's there, like gravity's there, but you can't really see it. They know it's there, but they have never been able to capture it. They call it the God particle. They want to discover what's holding this universe together. Ladies and gentlemen, it's just very simple. Open up your Bible and save billions of dollars. The Word made flesh is what's holding this entire universe together. Amen. But they want to find the God particle. And in that process, there's a lot of danger that's been speculated around this particular instrument, because this entire instrument and this practice has the potential of creating miniature black holes. Now, they say there's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to happen. And even if it is, they're microscopic and there's no problem, but they've never done it before. So how do you know that a microscopic wormhole won't pull the entire United States, or the entire world, I should say, into it, and off we go? Now, thank God we know that's not how it ends, because the Bible tells us the end from the beginning. Genesis chapter 1, verse 14 says that he put the sun, moon, and the stars in the skies for signs and for seasons. That word signs in Hebrew literally means omens or warning, and seasons doesn't mean spring, winter, summer, fall. It literally means Moedim, the appointed days of the Lord. CERN is about to start up the Hadron Collider, ladies and gentlemen, on April 8th, on the day of the biggest solar eclipse in American history, where millions of people are flying from around the world. They are going to collide these hadron atoms, these protons, these electrons are going to be collided on this day. Now, why in the world would they choose April 8th to do this? I have no idea, but this company is creepy on every level, and I'll tell you why. Not only is CERN in CERN, Switzerland, but I want to show you this, because this is cause for, in my opinion, a cause for alarm. And here's why. If you take a look at where it's actually at, okay, a large portion of CERN is located in the territory of St. Genus Poli, probably not pronouncing that right. In Roman times, it was called Apollicum. The town and the temple were dedicated to Apollyon, the destroyer. So this is ancient Horus. This is Shiva. The town Apollyon literally is dedicated to the god of destruction, the god of chaos, the destroyer. And this entire Hadron Collider is right in the middle of Apollyon. This is the logo that CERN has. Now, Couple of things that I notice about this logo. Number one, they say that this is a Hadron Collider going into circles, but to me, this looks eerily like a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse that's happening right in front of us. And two, if you take this symbol and you just unmix them, you take them apart, here's what it looks like. These are actually, it's 3 6s put together. Their logo is 3 6s put together. I'm here to tell you that the devil does not come out blatantly and say, oh, by the way, I'm going to use this company to represent me and bring on the Antichrist. No, he does things always subliminally. So there's always a mixture. It's a tree of knowledge of good and evil. The devil is involved in the details, and he's always hidden in plain sight. And here is what's fascinating. Only company that I know of in history that's international in nature, that right outside the doors of this facility in CERN is the statue of Shiva. Now, they will tell you, oh, this was given to us by the scientific community from India. And that's true. They are telling you in plain sight, this is what we believe. Now, who is Shiva? It's actually not even a she. They say it's a she, but it's actually a guy, but it's actually mixed, a guy and a girl. Sounds like a trans to me, thousands of years old, right out of the mind and the playbook of the enemy. And she is the goddess of destruction. So her job is to destroy. And that's exactly what Satan wants to do. He wants to destroy what God did and then recreate it in himself. And so Shiva is doing a dance with fire. Okay. We know how the end of the world ends according to the book of Revelation and the prophets. This is a plaque that's right next to the statue. This is what it says. Now, for those that just believe all this is just given by the Indian government, okay, if so, why is these words on this plaque? Quote, thousands of years ago, Indian artists made the image of the Lord Shiva absorbed in the dance from the copper chain. Today, in our time, all physical scientists are again using advanced technologies to create the format of cosmic dance. At present, scientists theorize of a cosmic dance actually stands on the foundation of ancient myths, religion, art, and physics. Modern physics tells us that the process of creation and cataclysm is not just linked to the beginning and end of life in the universe, but to the particles of the whole creation. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, this was quoted by a top scientist on a plaque right next to this Shiva statue that is validating that Shiva is the perfect representation of what we're doing. The particles dance on a microscopic level, and it's all connected to religion. It even says it in there that religion, art, physics, all of these things are mixed together. They're all connected. This is incredible what's happening on April 8th, and that's just one component. State officials are now coming out across the United States and telling people, keep your kids out of school, make sure that you have extra gas and extra food. For the first time in American history, we have a solar eclipse, and the state government is saying, hey, by the way, you might want to not keep your kids in school that day. You might want to have some extra food. Why are they telling us to have extra food and have extra gas in our car? If nothing, they don't want people in school. They want you to have extra food. Something is amiss. And on top of that, the National Guard is being released and instructed in all of these cities across the United States as some sort of precautionary measure. For what is the question? Is the precautionary measure? They've never done this before in modern history. They know something that we don't. Now, again, I'm not saying that anything is going to happen. I'm not a prophet, but what I can tell you is prophecy says that in the end days, there'll be wars, there'll be rumors of wars, and crazy things like this will happen. Earthquakes will happen. The sun and the moon will go dark. That's about to happen on April 8th. But let me show you this. NASA on April 8th, not April 9th, not April 7th, April 8th, is going to be launching 3 rockets into this solar eclipse for all kinds of research purposes, and that's fine, all dandy. But why in the world would they have to name this mission after an Egyptian god called Apep, which is the nemesis of Ra, the sun god? This is the god of destruction and chaos and darkness. So they name this mission after the God of darkness, which is, I guess, the eclipse wink that NASA's doing. And I think it's fascinating that all of these things are happening at one time. You've got the Devil's Comet showing up on April 8th. You can go outside right now on the horizon, and if you live in the United States, and look towards the west, towards the setting sun, and you'll be able to see you should be able to see on a clear night, the comet. Now, the last time that we had a comet, ladies and gentlemen, with it's two solar eclipses that formed an X over the United States was in 1811, and 3 months later was the largest continental earthquake in the history of the United States. So large it caused the Mississippi River to flow backwards, and the Liberty Bell rang on the East Coast. And now we've got a Hadron Collider that's trying to collide two atoms together to form whatever they're trying to form, find the God particle, open up the space-time continuum. And if that's not enough, on this same day, April 8th, but 1904, Aleister Crowley, one of the most satanic occult leaders of all time in the early 1900s, said that he was contacted by a god of Egypt named Horus, which just so happens to be the sun god of Egypt. And Horus gave him very specific instructions that he told him to write down in what's called the Book of the Law. How ironic. Horus has a book of the law, and God himself in the Old Testament has the book of the law. God says, if you keep my commandments, you'll be blessed. If you don't, you'll be cursed. Well, maybe the curse is because you're keeping the book of the law of Horus, of the enemy. So it says this in Wikipedia. According to Crowley's later statements on April 8th, he heard a disembodied voice identifying himself as Ahwaz, the messenger of Horus. Okay. Crowley said that he wrote down everything the voice told him over the course of the next 3 days. And he said the book proclaimed that humanity was entering a new eon and that Crowley would serve as its prophet. It stated that a supreme moral law was to be introduced in this eon. Now look, here's the supreme moral law. You ready for this? Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, and that people should learn to live in tune with their will. In other words, Horus, the god of Egypt, the sun god, aka Satan himself, said, look, here's the book of my law. Do what you want. Your will is the most important will. I just thought that was incredibly fascinating that 120 years ago to the day, Aleister Crowley contacted a demon, just like what CERN is trying to do, and having something come forward. It's not going to be God. It's not going to be an angel. It's going to be a demon. And once again, we're going to be faced and forced to deal with that reality. Wow.
Oh boy, are they coming back? That's the big question. We all know the sound from a swarm or brood of cicadas. Now, for the first time in more than 200 years, two very specific broods of cicadas will be emerging at the same time in 17 states. The last time they actually came above ground at the same time was when Thomas Jefferson was president.
So yes, this is next that's happening on April 8th, or the time around there, is the cicadas. Within a few days of April 8th, we don't know exactly what day they're going to come out of the ground, but the first time, listen to this, two breeds of cicadas are coming out of the ground by the billions, covering a large swath of the United States of America. Just so happen to be in the Midwest, the entire middle and lower section of the United States, exactly where the X marks the spot. Okay, these cicadas are coming out of the ground. And the last time that mankind has seen these, get this, not a single person alive have seen them, 1803. So these might be all coincidences, ladies and gentlemen, but you've got things coming out of the ground, all right, that literally sound like right out of the book of Revelation. We've got the Hadron Collider firing up on April 8th, NASA launching something with a mission name after an Egyptian god. You have the Devil's Comet. You got a solar eclipse happening all at the same time. All of these things are happening, and that's not even it. You have the red heifers that are literally moments from being sacrificed in Israel. Israel gave permission to the Temple Institute to sacrifice these red heifers so that they can begin the process of doing daily sacrifices, which first they've got to build a temple, and that's going to cause all kinds of problems. But Israel found out that there was so much pushback by Hamas, by the Arabs, by the Palestinians, and that there was a threat even by Hamas saying that part of this war that they started was in part, they released a statement saying in part because of these red heifers. They do not want anything happening on that Temple Mount around the Al Mosque and the Dome of the Rock up there. That's their deal up there from their perspective. They don't want anything happening up there with their mosque and with the Dome of the Rock. And so part of the Hamas-Gaza war right now is because of that. And because the threat level went up, Israel just recently retracted their permission for the Temple Institute to sacrifice these red heifers. So they're putting it off, but it won't be for long. Right now they're in Shiloh, protected.
We've all heard about the red heifer sacrifice. All right, y'all, I've heard about the rebuilding of the third temple by the Jews all my life. What I never imagined is that it would not only happen in my lifetime, in your lifetime, but it was going to start in motion next month. That's right. The Jews plan on sacrificing the red heifer. This event right here, this sacrifice by the Jews will affect you and everyone around us this year if they actually carry this out. I want to make sure it doesn't matter if you're into this prophecy stuff. It doesn't matter if you're watching March Madness and you're just hooked on that. It doesn't matter if you just caught up in politics. This red heifer thing will affect you and me and everyone around us this very year. So I want to get that out there. If the Jews are going to build this third temple, which is what they want to do that, they literally have to sacrifice a red heifer. They're doing this ceremony because all the tools they use to build the third temple have to be cleansed, and the only way they believe they can do that is to sacrifice a spotless, blemishless red heifer. It pains my heart that when people talk about the red heifers, they don't mention the rest of it, the ramifications of what we're actually talking about here. So understand this, y'all. As much as this has to happen for Bible prophecy, this is a very, very bad thing they're doing, because it's not only a declaration of World War III against the whole Muslim world, but it's going to eventually usher in Armageddon and then the Antichrist. Now here's something y'all might know, because I sure as heck didn't. When the terrible attacks on Israel hit October 7th last year, the Hamas spokesman justified it by saying it was in response to, ready for this? The presence of the red heifers being brought there in the first place, and Jewish prayer on top of the Temple Mount. So if the Jews actually do this sacrifice, the Muslims know the next step is to knock the Dome of the Rock Mosque off the top, which is going to spread into absolute pandemonium, because biblically that's where it has to sit. And it's not just a cow, and it don't matter if you believe it scripturally or not, because the Jews believe it scripturally and the Muslims believe it scripturally. They know exactly what this threat is. So it's not if, but when the Dome of the Rock gets touched, we could see the most incredible violence come over Israel that we've ever seen in our entire lifetime. And we're talking about the next 30 days. So consider this, y'all. If Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th and it was that bad over the mere presence of the red heifers being there, imagine what they would do if this sacrifice was actually carried out. Way worse than that, though. Imagine how much this enrages God, because in an Old Testament sacrifice being carried out in 2024, when Jesus is the perfect sacrifice, John 18:36, Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." So why are they building a temple? Jesus is the new covenant with Israel. The sacrifice of a red heifer is no longer needed, it's no longer useful, and God does not accept payment of sacrifices of animals anymore. Jesus, the sinless Messiah who was sacrificed and who's also been raised from the dead, he is the only sacrifice that God is willing to accept for payment of our sins at this point. Bottom line. So y'all can see the huge problem with the Jews' rejection of Jesus and sacrificing the red heifer, as if to say Christ isn't enough. For those Jews that reject the truth and they're trying so hard to rebuild this third temple because it's going to usher in their so-called Messiah, they'll get their Messiah all right, but it ain't going to be who they're looking for. Now, can y'all imagine God's perspective on this whole thing? I sent my one and only son to y'all. He was perfect. You killed him. It was right there in your country. You saw it with your own eyes. It happened right on your watch with your hands. This is over 2,000 years later. He was the perfect sacrifice, and y'all are still trying to sacrifice a cow in 2024? This is why I feel like it's going to bring wrath.
The red heifer sacrifice, according to Torah, the front of the book, is necessary for Israel to begin doing sacrifices again. Now, why is that important to you as a believer today? Because Daniel chapter 9 says that the Antichrist is going to interrupt the daily sacrifice, and so that means there has to be a sacrifice. In order to be daily sacrifices, or I should say, in order for the the Antichrist to interrupt the daily sacrifices, there has to be daily sacrifices to begin with. But in any case, it has to be sacrificed in order for the daily sacrifice to begin. It's about to happen for the first time in thousands of years. They're going to do that. When that happens, the beginning of the end begins. Now, we don't know how long it will be before a temple could either be built or they could do it in Shiloh, because that's currently where they're being held right now. And the first temple, the tabernacle, was in Shiloh. They could easily build a tabernacle way faster. They could build a temple, and they could sacrifice the red heifers there. They could do the sacrifices every day there, the daily sacrifices. So we don't know what's in their mind, but I'm telling you, crazy things are happening on April 8th. There's one more thing. There are 5 planets, my friends, aligning on April 8th. Along with everything else, you've got 5 planets aligned. We have Earth will be in alignment with Venus, Neptune, Saturn, and Mars. I can tell you it rarely happens in Earth history. And so when 5 planets line up, okay, out of 8, on a solar eclipse with the Devil's Comet, hasn't been around in 70 years, right? With Cicadas that haven't been out since 1803, just a few short years before the War of 1812 and the biggest earthquake in the continental United States history, along with red heifers being sacrificed, a Hadron Collider, and all of this is happening on the same day.